26. Constance. Brent went limp. I instantly felt like a pulse in his wrist, with tears in my eyes. I knew there was something he could do. I read in my old science book, "Be alive, Brent. Please be alive." He had to be alive. His skin was slick with his sweat. As I felt around his wrist, there was faint, but it was still there. I felt relieved in an instant sense of urgency. "Come on, Bill. We had to pull," I said, keeping all my focus on Brand's limp body. "We can't do anything for him here. He's trapped. Even if we're strong enough, we will pull him apart. Not to safety," he replied. "Then open the door. Make it work. Make the door work." "That's what you're good at, Bill. Make it work." I was desperate, but I was also right. I had to be right. "I can't," he said softly. "Then go get help." I finally turned to look at him sitting cross-leaning from me, and he stared at me with this expression I didn't understand. He looked almost like he was in trance, but he wasn't dead. He was just scared. "We can," he said. "Of course you can. This is ridiculous." Bill looked down and closed his eyes and opened them again. "This is our fault. Do you see? There was nothing secret down here. Something we never supposed to know about. It didn't matter. We can deal with that after. Just get someone. Anyone." I turned back to Brent. I couldn't let go of his hands. This couldn't really be it, could it? This wasn't it. A day couldn't start so lovely and simple and end this way. It just couldn't. I could sense Bill move and get up. He was standing beside me. He was just using a different tactic, I guess. It infuriated me. "Constance, we had to leave. We had to let him go of him. He wouldn't want you to hold on like this. He wouldn't want you to have to bear the burden of his mistakes. I don't know what he would have wanted. We barely knew each other." I stared at the body of the young man in front of me, limp on the ground. He was still here. He would still be safe. "Well, I knew him, and you had to believe me." I looked at him again. I'd never seen Bill like this, all disheveled, blushy red face, hair out of place. He was terrified. I was too. Of course I was. I couldn't just leave Brand. I couldn't. If we rather prefer it that way, people don't always make the right decisions for themselves or others. His life was worth that risk. I turned back to Brand. I need a sign telling me what to do. If I let go or not. Could I even let go? Could I ever let go? It was then I noticed the inky black liquid spreading up over his torso, the ooze. From downstairs, it had found its way up to us, to him. I inhaled sharply. Then the thought passed over me. I hadn't really taken a good look at the substance yet. I was horrified but fascinated. I leaned closer to look at it carefully. It was so thick. It looked sticky, and it seemed to grow up Brent's body in branches, and reaching and crawling its way up like fingers. I couldn't understand liquid could work that way, but it didn't ooze and flow. Instead, it had sharp edges and points. "Constance, we have to go now." Bill put his hand on me, trying to physically pry my fingers off Brand's. "What is it?" I asked it. I leaned in and over Brand's body, even farther. The ooze was up to his shoulders now, enveloping his torso in thick blackness dripping on the floor beneath him. "It's the black stuff from downstairs," replied Bill, pulling his hand harder. He was no longer suggesting I let go. He was basically forcing me to. I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. "I know that," I replied, snapping at him. He recoiled as I stared him down and removed his hand from mine. I never snapped like that before. I calmed myself down to explain. "What is this made of? What is it behaving like this? Constance, this isn't the time for analyze." He wasn't wrong, but I just couldn't let go of Brand. I need to know of any of it. Something inside me was twisting in a way I didn't understand. I stared as the ink climbed up Brand's neck towards his head. "Bill is going to drown him. We had to get out now." I pulled out hard. Now it's so stupidly fragile. I watched horrified as the ooze poured and crawled its way over the side of his head, as it sunk into his ear, as it spilled over his closed eyes and his nose into his slack mouth, until his face was gone, and just an inky shadow remained. It still the ink defined all reasonable behavior, and it stuck its way along his arms, pulling at it, moved towards his hands, my hands. I felt sick. I was beyond fear now. I was somewhere else, somewhere that hollowed out my body, made my skin feel like a paper, my eyes sink into my skull. I felt aware of myself as a shell holding in blood and bone. I didn't feel human. I looked at my hands holding Brent's hand. They were there. They were real. I was real. I existed. And the Bill was pulling on my shoulders. I looked up at him. All his manners and over-the-top gentlemannerisms put aside to get me to just let go. There was something about that I liked. The fever never seemed sincere. That rhymed it. I giggled to myself. I felt how it feels to have too many glasses of champagne. A strange light-headed feeling. Brent's hand squeezed mine, and I flinched, shocked at the sudden movement. He was awake? I looked out at my hands. The inky black liquid was climbing up them. I realized it wasn't Brent squeezing me. It was a strange substance. It was tightening my grip, pinching my hands tight inside the gloves. For the first time, the urgency to let him go surged through me. I started to pull away, to pull my hands out of Brent's. But they were stuck together, fused together like a melted metal. I can't let go, I said. Bill still had me by the shoulders. You have to, he replied. No, I mean, I'm stuck. I'm stuck to him. I pulled harder, the panic racing as the black goo made its way over my fingers and up to my hand. I was pulling so hard now. I was swinging both arms in France like a puppeting some demon mare. Let me pry his fingers off, said Bill, coming around beside our arms. No! I said it with such force I was surprised. What? No, if you touch the substance, if you touched it. I didn't know what the rest of the sentence was, but I knew I was right. The thought about Bill and the black specks on his face, about his straight draw to a machine, about all of it. No, let me do this. It's the gloves. If I can just... Dues made it hard to relax my fingers within Brand's grasp, but I was able to wiggle them a little. The black substance ran up to my wrist, toward the edge of my gloves. How can I help? Asked Bill. I don't know. He reached over me and grabbed up my forearms, taking them gently in his hands, started to pull, not hard, not as so hurt, but to help. I suppose I wasn't sure it was really that helpful, but I let him. I felt the gloves slip down my fingers, catching the tip. The top of my hands were free, but the ink quickly grabbed hold. I pulled hard now, not caring if I tore my own skin away. I was frantic. Pull! I ordered. Bill pulled lightly at my forearm, his fingers grazing my skin like he was petting a skittish cat. Anger was rising up inside me. Why was he so completely useless? Pull, damn it! I yelled. My voice was sharp, but I kind of liked it. I felt the anger in my chest as I pulled as well. Bill clearly took me seriously and finally grabbed my arms tightly, almost to the point of cutting my circulation, and pulled. Besides our actions, it pulled and pulled. The tips of my fingers stung as the gloves ripped away from my skin. Then, with a great complete shock, we flew backward. My fingers free of my gloves. It's the same instant the blue goo exploded, and I raised my arms extensively to protect my face. The droplets rained everywhere, and there was stillness. I looked up to see what happened. Before me, where Brand's body had been, covered in the black, was a sweeping puddle. There was no sign of Brand, his form, his presence, nothing. Just a puddle that seemed to reach out toward me and Bill, so suddenly the heavy metal door slammed shut. I screamed and held my arms once more. Then, when I realized what happened, I lowered them and stared at the small inky puddle before us. Started to sink backward toward the closed metal door, sinking away from us, slipping through the cracks. Then it was gone. He was gone. Brent was gone. Are you okay? Asked Bill. What a question to ask. Of course I wasn't okay. I knew he meant if I was okay physically. I suppose aside from my sticking fingers I was. Yes. I brought my hands up close and looked at them. My fingertips were red and raw, and there was a black on my wrist where the ink had spilled over the edge of my gloves. I noticed then the black up my sleeves and looked down at my skirt. More black droplets from the explosion. I turned and looked at Bill. He had more black speckles on his face and some now in his hair. What about you? I'm okay. He didn't look okay. Come on, let's get out of here. He was right. It was time. The idea of just leaving felt overwhelming, but it was the only thing to do. We were tangled together, so it took a moment for us to help each other. Just standing, I stared at Bill. The ink was splattered across his body, from head to toe, and I must look the same. He looked down at himself. Well, my father's going to kill me. The anger felt inside me again like a sudden explosion of light, darkness. At least that's the metaphor. At least you aren't Brand. He looked at me. There was a look of betrayal in his eyes, and I merely felt guilty. I'm sorry, I said quietly, looking down. I'm just upset. I am too, he replied also quietly. We stood there in silence. Then, "We're not quiet enough. Time has passed," he said. "We had to get out of here." He was right. I knew he was right. Brand was just been exploded into goop. And here we are, the only two people around. We would have been blamed for it all. Then again, was it not in a way our fault? Should we not be blamed? I looked at the small black stain on the floor, and my mind just couldn't wrap itself around the idea that Brand had vanished like that. That he had been, and now he wasn't. I wanted to cry, but it's all too unbelievable. All I felt was guilt and a burning member of anger. Let's go. I bent down and picked up my gloves carefully, pitching them from the outside. They were cold and black, but I couldn't just leave them there, at the vents. The crime. What have we done?